Welcome back, everybody, to Voiceoctover 2023, where I interview various veterans of the voiceover world. I finally remembered all the V's at the top of the show this time. This might be my final guest of the month, possibly. We'll see about that. But if that's the case, we're certainly ending on a high note because I have with me today a lovely, lovely, lovely lady who you probably know best as the likes of Sora from Digimon, Jazz Fenton from Danny Phantom, Ino and Konohamaru, and many, many other Naruto characters. She's been the Wasp on Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. You've heard her in cartoons from Static Shock to What's With Andy to Scooby-Doo, Juniper Lee, Hanazuki, and now for over 10 years, she's been the voice of the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog character, Charmy the Bee. Oh, and I guess she's been Tails for a while. It may or may not have been him in a theatrical film or something. I don't know. It's Colleen O'Shaughnessy. Hi.
Hello.
How's that for an intro? Not bad, I hope.
I love it. Who doesn't love Charmy the Bee?
He truly is. He's not appreciated nearly enough. Yeah, thank you for taking the time. You are another very, very busy human being that I appreciate you lowering your standards to give me an hour of your time today. So, and we've had an interesting relationship because we've been with the same agency for a long time.
Yeah.
Since I moved out here. So yeah. Well, I'm gonna bust as I often always try to do. I'm gonna bust the generic crap all out of the way. And I want to learn some things about you that I don't know.
Okay.
Tell me your tragic backstory as to how you were bit by the performance bug and went on the path of insanity. I mean, fulfilling of being a performer that you are today.
Haha. Yes, my origin story. A million years ago, I started out doing musical theater, like a lot of us. I was doing musical theater at the University of Michigan, born and raised in Michigan. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after school. Originally, the plan was to go to grad school and be a music therapist, but I was doing 2 degrees at the University of Michigan, and I was like, I can't do any more school. I just can't do it. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was doggone it, I was going to finish. I just wasn't sure where I was headed because I really didn't want to go to New York. And at the time, Chicago theater was very theater for theater's sake. It was very serious, and I am not a serious person. I mean, I have my moments, but I like the funny, I like the silly. And I always just kind of did voices. I gave voices to dogs and babies and, things that had faces that couldn't talk for themselves. And they would just pop out. And so I was at the end of a dance class at Michigan, and I was talking to a fellow musical theater person about a test, and apparently voices were coming out. And my dance instructor came running over and said, "Was that you?" And I apologized. I'm like, "I'm so sorry. They just come out." And she said, "No, you need to do voiceover." And I was just like, yes, I do. It just didn't occur to me that was somebody's job. That, I watched cartoons my whole life and Wonderful World of Disney. And, I was just like, yes, 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 please. And thank you. So we didn't have the Googling devices back then either. I'm really, really old. So I had to kind of figure it out. Like, I was like, what do I do? How do I make this happen? And Los Angeles was the answer. So I moved to LA, and I kind of did things backwards. I made my demo before I took a voiceover class. I was taking acting classes still, and I always tell people, they say, what should you do? How do I get into voiceover? Acting classes, theater, improv, all those things. So I was still taking acting classes, but I did my demo before I took an actual voiceover class and did any sort of mic technique learning or whatever. So and it just started picking people's brains and asking a million questions and bothering people until they said, fine, okay, fine.
I'll get you an audition if you'll shut up. God,
fine.
Well, when you first got out, so what was that, what point of time was it when you first got out here?
95. Okay. I think it was 95.
Gotcha.
And it took me a couple of years, and I got an agent fairly quickly. I was just sending things out, and I got an agent, but he was like, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to hip pocket people. I don't know if that's a term anybody's ever heard of again. Still, now, whatever. It was where they were like, well, we're not going to totally commit with a signing of you, but we're going to try you out for a little bit, see how it goes.
Oh, yeah. I think they still do that once in a while from what I've heard, yeah.
Okay, so that's what he was doing with me, and I went to producers on like the first thing he sent me out on,
Oh.
which I didn't get it, but I went to producers, so he was like, "All right, we'll sign you." But then I had maybe 8 auditions in the first year. Like I
Wow.
would make up reasons to call him, and so that's when I was like, "This is bananas. I have to have, I have to. This has to be better." So again, picking people's brains, saying, okay, asking about different agencies and being specific about what I really wanted to do. And that's when I narrowed it down to 8, and I was sending them out and 2 at a time, and I was down to my last 2. And voila, got the agent that I still have her. I've been with her for 25 years now. 26.
Wow, rad.
So,
yeah. My God. And then you blink and suddenly it's 2023 and we've been through, lockdown land and all these things.
Yeah.
When this is something, because as I've kind of gotten to know a lot of people from the different sort of, I guess, generations of, different folks that started, but I showed up and now suddenly I'm in, 20 shows and etc. I find that people kind of like interconnect a lot. Were there folks kind of in the scene that were sort of like your guides that helped? Oh, like take this class with this person, or oh, talk to this casting person, to get auditions for this place or whatever. Like, did you make friends and allies and people out here like pretty quickly, like that were kind of instrumental in helping you kind of get your footing?
I would love to say yes, but no, because LA is such a sprawling city, and it was really, really hard. I met the people in my acting class, but none of them were trying to do voiceover.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, and that was actually a great resource for as far as like targeting agents and targeting casting directors. But I was like literal wild, wild west. I was like just throwing as much spaghetti against the wall as I possibly could. And then once I started, like, in the, because back then we would go into our agent's office to audition. And so I would meet people in the lobby and we would chit chat that way. But as far as like I just kept doing as much research as I possibly could. I did work in a cassette duplication place. Cassettes are little plastic doohickeys. Yeah, and I worked making the labels and the J cards for cassettes. And so anyone that came in with a voiceover demo, I would bug the crap out of them.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask them all the questions about classes and those kinds of things. And so I took a Sue Blue class.
Oh, okay.
And then I took, what was my other one? I think it was Chris Zimmerman.
Oh, no big deal. 2 giants to start with.
Yeah, because
Wow.
that's the thing. Like, I knew nothing of nothing, and so I was like, well, this is what the thing says, so I'm going to take that class. Why not?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Sometimes that zen of like, I don't know anything, and it makes you come off way cooler and less desperate than actors at the beginning of their careers can come off as.
Well, and then
so.
you're not, probably if I had known like their reputation more
Mm-hmm.
than I did, I probably would have been, peeing my pants every class.
Yeah.
But this has been me pretty much this whole time, and it still is. Like, I am Jon Snow. I know nothing. I never know anything.
You heard it here first. Colleen O'Shaughnessy, the Jon Snow of voiceover.
Yeah.
Put that on your
nothing.
site. So I look back at, and I never fully trust IMDb or BTVA on things, but
Yeah.
was Digimon your first voiceover gig?
So my very, very first voiceover actual job that I got paid for was a reporter Barbie book.
Oh.
And that would be on IMDb. But that was the very first thing. And I went all the way down to Mattel in La Segunda or wherever that is.
Yeah, far down.
Super far away. I'm surprised they didn't put a bag over my head, because it's like, it's like how they are with video games now. It's like top secret. It's toy making. Like they had literally had somebody go to the bathroom with me. Yeah. So I went down there for the audition, and they just used my audition. So while I was like, yes, my first job, I was like, I didn't feel like I actually got to do it because it was an audition. But then my very first show was The Kids from Room 402.
Okay.
But it was original animation, so it took a while to air. So yes, Digimon was the first thing that I did that aired, and it was also my first anime. I had no idea what I was doing.
Wow. Okay.
Like I was like, what are these weird? There's something wrong with my headphones. There's beeps happening. I don't know what's going on. Like I knew nothing, and all of the little cues that are in the scripts, and some authors or whatever writers had different keys, and there wasn't like a key at the beginning that told you, oh, a caret means this or a ... means this. I was like, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, no, I've never seen like 90s and earlier style ADR scripts because and they're all different, like from region to region from what I've understood. But yeah, that would
totally inconsistent. Sometimes the ... means blow through it, and sometimes it means pause. And then you've got the caret pause, and then you've got the slash pause, and then you're help somebody out. Or sometimes it was like the squiggle line. Keep going. What if there was no squiggle? Because if you keep going, because it's a sentence, you just keep going. I don't know. It was
was that also still analog you were working on?
Yes.
Oh my good Lord! Wow.
Yes.
How funny for Digimon, it was still digital monsters. It was still analog.
Not digital, exactly. Yeah, it was kind of crazy, and I really did not know. I mean, I was sweating by the end of those sessions because I was like, oh my God, they're gonna find me out. I don't know what I'm doing. But I figured it out. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw the movies, the redone, uncut versions of the movie trilogy that came out recently, and to see you guys still playing those characters all these years later was pretty awesome. On the note of both Kids from 402 and Digimon, it's funny because maybe this is very grand sweeping for me to say. As I've kind of witnessed the careers and like the fandom that surrounds a lot of different actors, there's quite a few people where it's like, oh, like they're primarily known for this or for that or for for their anime stuff first or their video game stuff first or their original cartoon stuff first. And you really have had like a very, very varied like even like the most iconic and memorable of your characters, it's like there's stuff from all over. It's like you're not primarily known as like an anime person or a cartoon person or a video game person. And the fact that like from the beginning of your career, you were literally doing I'm assuming 402 was an ensemble recorded show.
Yes.
Yeah. And then also like, and then dubbing too. It's just like, it wasn't just like this section thing. It's just, just other jobs, just whatever I get, at that point, which is kind of cool to see because I feel like that's uncommon, it seems like.
I've been so very lucky, and yeah, it's like another one of those like, wow, because especially when we go to these conventions now, you see like what people are really known for and what the fans are there to see them for, and yeah, I'm sort of all over the map. I don't have but also along my career, it was always like, oh, I guess this month I'm doing video games. And then, a month later, I'm like, oh, I'm only doing commercials. It's just my career's it's been very roller coastery that way. It's like, I don't know why. It's just kind of crazy. But I'd have spits and starts of different genre clumped together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's one of the biggest lessons I learned is like, especially if you're getting into this, it's like having as many different revenue streams as possible through like however many mediums you can work. I mean, not even just were you ever doing any kind of like on camera theater stuff when you were out here too, or did it just become all voice?
I tried to do everything when I first moved out here, and like I said, I got into my acting class, and I was trying to do everything. I was trying to do on camera commercials, theatrical. I think I auditioned for a little bit of theater because I came from a theater background. I remember I had a callback for Les Mis, which was really awesome. Yeah, that was really cool. For Eponine and Cosette, and I'm like, yeah. So so I kind of dabbled, but it was just too hard to focus on everything. Like something was gonna suffer if I kept trying to do all the things, and I got really discouraged with the on-camera stuff because when I came, like they didn't know what to do with me. They were, they would, at the time, there were lots of shows on TV, and I know they still do this, but this was like almost every TV show had quote unquote teenagers, but they were all played by like mid to late 20s, 30 somethings. So I was in the right age group for that. And I have always, luckily, thank you, Grandma, for all your good genes. I've always looked younger than how old I actually am. So I think they would like, I don't know. It was just kind of crazy. But I'd go in for a meeting or whatever, and they'd meet me, and they're like, "Oh, she doesn't look like a teenager in person. So we can't, and I have this dark hair and fair skin, and it's just like this weird, like, what do we do with her? She's not Latina. She's not, like it was a weird space for me. And the pictures, it was black and white pictures. So when you have super dark hair and eyebrows and super light skin, it's really hard for photographers to figure that out. So my headshots always look terrible. It was tricky. So I finally was just like, you know what do I really want to do? I want to do voiceover. That's what I came here to do. That's what at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to do. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's worked out, and the fact that you're still playing kids and teenagers, after all this time, which is nice. Because
oh my gosh, the first time I played an adult, I was like, oh,
what?
Do I have a grown-up voice? I don't know. What does that sound like?
No, that was when I was in New York. Brief aside, but when I was in New York, I played all kids and high pitched and characters played by women in Japanese, which is weird because and then I came out here and my first thing was one of these, and I'm like, oh, I guess LA made my balls drop in the eyes of producers. Sure, whatever, okay. Yeah. I would be remiss not to ask. I mean, because Digimon, and not just with Sora and Adventure and Onward, but you did a lot of the other series as well. I mean, that was like the gift that kept on giving. You got any funny stories about any of the times, and I mean, different directors and engineers and people over the years, but like any kind of like fun memories about just that franchise, as it were, that stick out?
It's just funny that I was like, oh, this is Data Squad. Oh, now we're in Fusion. Like, they were all a little bit different. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to just ride this Digimon train until until the bitter end. You know what? It was always just so, I can't think of anything specific because it was like a million years ago. But I just remember, like, I can picture the different studios. And I remember, like, for Digimon, we had many different directors. Like, it kept flipping from director to director and different writers, and we were in a couple different studios. But the next go around of Digimons were all at this, it was Studiopolis, but they had this other studio on Cahuenga, and it was like, it was in this weird spot, and I don't know, I just remember the parking was tricky, and like, these are the things that I remember. Is can I park my car? Like, how do I get in this building?
Yeah, well, I know when you have facilities that have like multiple places around town, and it's like, God knows, I'm sure we've all probably made the mistake of which place am I going to today for this show? I think we've all made that.
I've done that a million times, especially with Studiopolis. I'm like, what? Oh crap. Okay, bye. Tell him I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Is Sora? I mean, I know Tails is probably something uneclipsable, but is Sora one of those big things that, like, even now, like, kids and adults and babies and like everybody, I'd imagine, does everybody still come up to you for her in particular?
Yeah, a lot. And I mean, I've had people come up to my table and start crying because of whatever was going on in their lives at the time that they started watching Digimon, like, and they'll tell me that Digimon got them through a really hard time in their life, and I'm just like, we need to hug now. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm glad you got through it, and it's just so crazy to think that something that you did, because you know what, we're in this booth alone, or sometimes with your fellow actors, which was wonderful, but you don't realize how impactful what we do can be. You think, oh, I'm just being silly in a booth, but it really can, and that's really touching, and it means a lot that, what I do is not totally frivolous. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do. I have actually just this past, not this weekend, but the one before, like, lots of Digimon love, lots of Sora love. Like, oh, Sora was always my favorite, and and she's the crest of love, and she was like everybody's big sister, and
probably a crush for many people, as there's always that for
and
some
then they have
character.
to talk about and then they have to talk about the relationships and how come she ended up with Matt, and that just doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, I did talk to whoever wrote it.
People change over the course of 20 years. It's, what are you gonna do? That was I do remember, like, at one point when there was some long crazy, like, marathon that, like, Fox Family played of just, like, the whole, like, last stretch of Adventure. And it's like, here's all of them, and they're all married and have kids, and it's just like, oh, okay, sure. And then, oh, next show, okay, yeah, that's I know how this goes, sure.
It's kind of weird, because especially with Digimon, they were kids, and you can't, like, thinking of them grown up and married is bizarre. Like, at least with, like, Naruto did the same thing, but at least with Naruto, it was sort of, I mean, over 700 plus episodes.
Oh yeah.
they did grow up, and they kind of, so then now Boruto, we're faced with them as adults, which is completely bizarre. But yeah, it's just weird to think of a cartoon character growing up.
I know that is such a, I feel like kind of, and more American cartoons are doing this, but I feel like that was something anime kind of opened the floodgates for, with like when you do have a character that goes from like I'm 10 to I'm a teenager to I'm a parent
35.
now. It's like, good lord, yeah, because I think because Chocho is Ino and Sai's daughter, right? I think.
No,
Yeah.
Chocho is Choji's
yes.
daughter.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. No, but Ino is a mom in Boruto. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember now. I
And
have my things
Ino
straight.
Jean is her son.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Another show, I got to point this out too, and I feel like such a fool that like this was
You're
when
not
I was out of my watching Nick phase at the time that this kind of hit the scene, but so I completely missed the boat on Danny Phantom. Which I know so many people my age and younger and older that were like, that was my show. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I loved it so much. And I grew up with, Butch Hartman's stuff in general, because Odd Parents, you couldn't escape it. It was on, 500 times a day.
Yeah.
But I got, because especially looking at just the cast of that show, and I don't know if Butch directed the show itself or if there was somebody else directing it. But
He did. He did. And we got to be at Nickelodeon, everybody in the room together. And Rob Paulson, Kath Soucie, Gray Delight. Like, it just was, a who's who of voiceover in this room all together. Everyone was hilarious, of course. Everyone ridiculously, stupidly talented. And it just, and you were in Nickelodeon. They had like chocolate coming out of a dispenser in the kitchen and everything, it was just like,
and the big
I'm at
green
Disneyland
slime
every day.
pipes everywhere. Yeah. I've been in that building once and I was like, I don't want to leave here.
No, you don't want to go home.
That one, anything stick out in your mind in terms of like weird moments of that? Because especially when you're in the room together with everybody, I got to imagine there's some crazy stuff that happens.
Oh, there was always just, yeah. I mean, I feel like for that one, and while people were, of course, like, funny and stuff, people tended to stick to the script and, really, like there were moments that after we were recording that they would do it. Like they wouldn't necessarily do all the stuff during recording. Now, if you're talking about Sonic Boom,
we'll get to that.
It's astonishing we ever got anything recorded for that show. But gosh, for Danny Phantom, you're asking me for specifics from so long ago. I don't, you know what? It just was a great time. And Butch was such a wonderful, he wrote the show. So of course he, knew everything about it. So it was kind of great to, I think that was the first time I had worked with the director that had created the show as well, which is a really interesting, and great way to work on a show, because obviously they know the whole universe and they created it themselves. So they really know what they want. And he was really good, being able to speak to actors and tell them, explain things and tell them what they want and what he wanted. Oh gosh, I can't think of anything specific. But one thing that does stand out for me is we did a table read for that show, which you don't often get to do a table read for animation. You just kind of hop in the booth and do it. Yeah. But the first day they had us like in a conference room sitting around a table doing a table read for the show, which is what they do for like, movies and stuff. So that was a really unique experience for an animated series. And maybe some of the bigger Fox ones, maybe they do that. I don't know. But I hadn't done that before. And it was really, really great. And they gave us posters that Butch had signed. And on the first day, it was great.
Yeah. I just think about, because I did a Cartoon Network show, and the first day I'm just like, oh, all these people that I grew up with around me, and I'm like, did you, actually out of curiosity, did you know of like some of the cast from like, had you seen stuff that, on TV that you would watch and say, oh, you're in, whatever, Pinky and the Brain or Rugrats or whatever, like, or was it just like, oh, not just fellow professional? Because if I were in a room with some of those people, I'd be like, oh, okay, don't piss self. Speaking of that again, like.
Yeah, no, I knew Kath from. Did she work on Kids from 402? I think she was on Kids from 402.
Okay.
As well, I think. Vague recollection.
I love her.
But she's amazing. I mean, talk about an icon of voiceover. And at that point, it was like. She has this wealth of experience and parts and I was very starstruck with her for sure. And Rob Paulson, I think I knew that he was Pinky, he was Pinky, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know if I knew that at the time. I just remember just like the whole thing was just all of it overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like I said before about being exhausted after. I was exhausted after because it was just like, all dreams coming true, and I'm in this building, and it's just this whole, like, the group reads, you can't beat it. It's the best experience.
I know, and rarer than ever now, in our post-COVID world. But
even right before COVID, they were starting to do that, because like I worked on Doc McStuffins and If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and we absolutely all could have worked together, but they had everybody come in one at a time. It was so weird. Mm-hmm. I'm like, but I want to work with all the people. Why do I have to be by myself?
Yeah, I've got a very small foot in that kind of, in that world, but the couple times that I've gotten to do it, it really is. It's like, oh yeah, no wonder like you don't want to go back from that if that's all you could do for your whole career.
Yeah, it's magical.
I know Naruto was another one, like with Digimon, where like it just doesn't stop after. Like I feel like everyone on planet Earth has done an episode or had a character that's gone on for 10, 15, however many years at this point. It's funny because I know, Ino is another one of those like, big awakening characters for people, but Konohamaru sticks in my mind because also like your boy voices are something I know have become like kind of a big thing for you. I don't know if that was the first before, but like develop it. Here's something. When you kind of got into the business and it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing this, and then you have to get to that point of like, continuing to kind of develop stuff and reinvent yourself and different things, like coming up with different kind of characters and new stuff to surprise people with, like the boy voice, just as an example, like kind of where did your inspiration for that kind of stuff come into? Because I imagine that served you well when Charmy and Tails came up then years later.
Well, it's kind of crazy. That's a good question to ask me, because in my head all my characters were girls. Like it didn't occur to me that, like, I've always had some gravel in my voice, and it's always kind of like, I sort of talk on my chords. I always kind of have, which was I had many voice teachers that are like, you're gonna ruin your voice, but that's where my voice sits. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what it is. Mm-hmm. So I have like an automatic gravel that I can smooth it out, but it's just kind of there, especially when I'm tired. So I had gone to producers for the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, okay.
And I was auditioning for Bubbles and Blossom. Mm-hmm. And so when I was doing my Bubbles audition, and I'm nervous, oh my god, I'm a Cartoon Network. And obviously I did not get either one of those parts, but this was one of those that I was just sitting across the desk from somebody, which is always bizarre. I don't know if you've ever had one of those auditions where you're like, but there's just a microphone sitting on your desk. Like, why are we doing it like this? It just was so bizarre.
Oh my God, no.
No, it's awful because you're like, and you're sitting, which I don't like to sit. I'm a stander. So I was like, but you just got to do it because you're an actor and they said do it. So you have to say yes. Not always. Disclaimer.
Sure.
Anyway, so I'm sitting there and the microphone is on the desk so she's reading with me, and we did it, and she goes, "It sounds a little too much like a boy. Can we do it again and girl it up a little bit?" And I was like, "Of course I can," but in my head I'm thinking, "What does she mean? I don't sound like a boy. What do you mean I sound like a boy? I don't know what to." I'm like, we did it again, and I tried to, quote unquote, girl it up. And I was like, okay. And then we did Blossom. And then she was like, okay, great. She says, you know what? You need to go and tell your agent that you do boy voices. And that just like threw me for a loop. I had to just like, yeah. Cause I was like, I do? Do I? I don't. Okay. So I had to really wrap my head around that. So I had done one boy voice that they just kind of threw at me during Kids from Room 402. Mm-hmm. But I had to really start to think about it. And I had a phone audition. This was bananas, where they were just like, okay, no script, no nothing. Like, okay, you're in the cafeteria, be a 6-year-old boy. I'm like, okay. And now you're 8, now you're 10. Like, it was, so I had to really like think about the different ages and how maybe a 6-year-old boy might be different from an 8 or a 10-year-old boy, or, and how old can I get? I don't know. Like, so yeah, I had to really kind of wrap my head around that and figure it out. So I would listen to kids. I would watch TV commercials that had kids in them, or I would just start to really kind of had to do a little bit of research on boy, stereotypical boy voice, stereotypical girl voice, and and to me it turned into, especially after I had kids, it turned into more about, because often little boys and little girls don't necessarily sound that much different from each other. Like my nephew had a super deep voice and always has, which was the cutest thing ever. But a lot of little kids, they all sound the same, kind of, at the same age, often. So I kind of looked at it more as how does a stereotypical little boy approach the world versus how does a girl approach the world? Because I had two kids and we had pretty, whatever. There were lots of, whatever, stereotypical boy toys and stereotypical girl toys, but they approached these exact same toys in very different ways. My son turned everything into, like, it was going to just get destroyed.
After my own heart.
Yes, he was rough and tumbling. Like, everything's like exploding, breaking, bashing into each other. Godzilla's coming and stomping and everything. Like, and then my little baby girl was like, she could sit with a magazine and flip through it. Like, they couldn't have been more different. And she was so gentle with things and more motherly or whatever. And even if she had like a train or a car, it would be very slowly going across the tracks while my son was like, they were crashing into each other and breaking the whole town. So I kind of had to approach it that way. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. And it's funny because, I mean, like, not every voice actress does that. And it's because I've often asked, like, even my other guests that I had this year, I'm just like, where does that kind of come from? And then, did they develop it from different ways and things? But I think it's true. I think it really is down to, like, it's an attitude thing. It's not so much like, vocally, what am I doing? It's about, like, the attitude of a stereotypical quote unquote boy. But it's funny because I look at Naruto alone and just, like, all the little, like, incidentals and because you were all over that. In Konohamaru were obviously like the two kind of main ones, but, like, you were guys and girls every other episode of that, and they were all so distinct from each other, which I think is pretty sick, personally.
Thank you. Well, and the other thing, just to bookend the end of it, is like you could listen to Konohamaru and you could listen to Tales and you might be able to tell that it's me, but to me, Konohamaru and Tales couldn't be more different. And so how either one of them would approach the same situation is going to be very different. And certainly Konohamaru has much more gravel and he's a little bit unhinged as opposed to Tales. But like I said, you might be able to tell that it's me, but in my head, they're very different characters. So that's how I have to, like, look at it.
Well, transitioning into Sonic, and it's insane to me that literally that was, now I'm looking at just Sonic Colors was 2010. It's been that long already that you guys, the LA, Studiopolis, quote unquote, Sonic cast has been the cast for that, that many years already.
Yeah.
At the time, see, this is the interesting thing. For fandom, that was a tremendous turning point when Colors happened, and suddenly it was you guys. If I had to guess, I imagine that at that time it was just like, just another audition, whatever. Maybe there's some references for the people that came before, but whatever. Like, was it kind of unremarkable, or, like, was there, like, a big, hey, this is a big deal that we're getting this property now? Like, what if you remember from back then?
For me, again, Jon Snow, I know nothing. Like, of course I'd heard of Sonic the Hedgehog, but I did not get the scope. I did not understand what was happening, which is, again, probably a good thing. So I actually auditioned for Tales for Sonic Boom, and I didn't know that the games were going to come along with it. I had done Charmy first, so I believe I am Charmy in Colors, but I am not Tails in Colors. Kate Higgins.
Yeah, because if I remember the timeline right, it was they moved Sonic to LA, keeping Mike Pollock, obviously. They had the big replacement with all y'all. Kate was Tails at that point. And did you audition for Charmy, or did they just, like, cast you as him?
I'm pretty sure I auditioned.
Okay.
But that one was not as like I don't have as significant a memory of that. I do for Tails because I didn't know that Kate was Tails. I had known Kate for years and we had worked on
Yeah, of
stuff, and
course.
so
Yeah.
we were in the lobby at the Annex together for the callback, and I was being called back, and this was for Sonic Boom. I was being called back for Tails and Sticks, and she was being called back for Sticks, and I don't even know how we got to the point of figuring out that she was Tails. And I was like, I don't want to audition for your part. And she goes, oh no, they don't want me, you do. She's very Kate Higgins.
That is the best
She's
impression
the
I've ever
sweetest,
heard.
and thank you. I just love her to pieces. And she, we were just talking about our kids and whatever, and so that stands out to me because, I know what it's like to be replaced, and it doesn't feel good. So to have another actor say, hey, I don't want to take your part. I don't know. But she gave me her blessing, so I feel better about it. But,
well, no, it was crazy too, because I remember when that first that little trailer where like it's you and Sonic and Eggman, like Burnbot, call him Velocirator or whatever, like that little like quick like kind of pitch thing or whatever. I remember seeing that. I couldn't even tell that it was you yet. It was such a seamless transition that I just assumed it was still Kate at the time, and then I think Cindy maybe was, oh no, it's Colleen now, and I was like, oh. Okay, sure. I never pried on like what, like why or whatever. I just figured, okay, like they must have some decision happened that led to that or whatever. But it was nice too, because the fact that, like, I don't know if you know this, and this is with no disdain to the cast that came before, because they're fine actors. But I do remember that when the LA switch happened, it was actually like kind of more of a celebration of, oh, look at all these really, really, really good people that they got that we all know from like Naruto and Bleach and whatever else at the time. And so people were kind of happy about it. And then the fact that, like, we didn't really expect that there was going to be another American style cartoon that was going to come, afterward, because, there was just kind of this way that they had of doing things. It was more like, kind of more like dubbing for a while, from what I understood. And the fact that, like, it was for the most part everybody from the games, because consistency matters. What a crazy concept.
I know, nuts, but yeah, and Sega's very particular about that, and I think they do like the continuity, and so and it's their property, and they hold it very close to them. So yeah, it's we all, of course, wish that Sonic Boom had gotten a third season and a fourth and a fifth. But where the franchise has gone, I think it, I don't know. I still can't believe it. Like it really did not hit me until I think it was the 25th anniversary, one of the anniversaries, and they took us all to New York for this Sonic fandom event. And holy cow. First of all, I learned a lot. Because I don't know anything. But I learned a lot, and people had like these encyclopedias of Sonic, and it was insane. I was so overwhelmed by this fandom and how people just love this blue hedgehog. It's crazy. But they really do, and they have very strong feelings. Luckily, I have not been on the negative end of things, but they have thoughts.
Yeah. Well, also, you don't play one of the girl characters, which is actually a godsend in that situation. Speaking from a second-hand account of that, but for Boom, I mean, because that was like the 7 or 8 of you guys that did like everything. All y'all were like all the bits and everything, Yeah. So you mentioned you had more distinct memories of that, because that was was that 26 episodes you guys did, I think, of that show, right?
At least. I'm not sure how many we had per season, but probably.
2 seasons, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was 2 seasons, so probably 26.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was just a laugh fest. Like I couldn't wait for those sessions. And like it was, they would email us our scripts, and I would, like, even if I got it the night before, and I like to go night-night. But I stayed up and read through the entire script because they were so funny. Those writers were so ridiculously talented and hilarious. It was funny on the page. And then knowing that we're going to go in the next day and turn it into this even funnier thing was, God, it was so much fun. We just had a blast. You've got, and I don't know why they sat us this way because it's probably a mistake, but it was Travis, then Roger, then me, then Cindy, then Nika, and then they had Kirk and Wally on the end if they were in the episode, and then Mike Pollock sometimes would come in town, but most of the time he was just in a headphone. But I mean, Travis and Roger sitting next to each other was just ridiculous. And then Cindy and I, like we both were triggered by musicals. So somebody would say something, we would start singing. It was just off the rails. Poor Jack was just like, it was like wrangling cat.
I have, it's funny enough, I've yet to meet, I think I've literally met everybody in the main cast of Sonic except for Roger at this point.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm so scared too because I kind of idolized him. He was before he moved this years ago. He was in the lobby of studio, and I had a Captain America shirt on, and I'm like, I can't go out to him while I'm dressed like this. I can't. It's gonna look weird. But I mean, he cracks me up, and I think he's one of the best.
He's very unapproachable and serious.
Yeah, not funny at all. Has no sense
He is
of
not
humor.
funny. Do not make jokes with him.
No, not even remotely.
Don't do it.
I gotta say too, having I didn't see every single episode. I watched the good majority of them, but it was also so incredibly surreal. Again, having not had a new American Sonic cartoon since like 2000 or something, like Underground or whatever. It was so surreal going from like the video games, which by and large, we're like, all right, we've got to go do this thing. Let's go do the thing. Okay. And like once in a while there would be like a joke or whatever, but going from that to like just this weird off the wall, strange. I could tell there was some ad-libbing and improv little, things once in a while, and just like a lot of the goofy liberties on like the line deliveries and things, It was just
and they
so
would
surreal
let us
to
do
see
that.
the
And
opposite
sometimes it made it in there and sometimes it didn't, but a lot of times it did. And which was nice. They were really, open to that. And like I said, poor Jack was just like
Jack, I've only met him in brief passing. I've been told he's a very like what's his name, Ben Stein, kind of like, all right guys, we're gonna do this thing. I don't know if that's accurate necessarily, but
very much so. Roger actually does like a perfect Jack impression, which is hilarious. He actually, and if Jack ever hears this, he'll be like, what? He totally intimidated me when the first couple of times I worked with him, and because I'd worked with him before we worked on Sonic Boom on a couple of two weird little shows and then a couple of games, and I don't know, it's something about him just really intimidated me. And then now that I know him, I'm like, what was I? He's at heart he's a teddy bear, but yeah, he really made me nervous.
No, I've been there. I mean, like Sizzy Goldish, who's like just the coolest person ever. Like, I've been intimidated. She doesn't do anything to be intimidating. I just think she's really cool, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm not cool enough to be in the same room as you sometimes.
Well, and when you know that they know what they're doing, and they're they've done this for so long, and they probably know more than you do. You're like, oh, what if they find out that I don't know stuff?
By the way, totally off topic, but I have to mention this before I forget real quick. And I don't remember if I ever told you this, somewhere before, but we share a character, actually.
We do?
Yes. Gundam Origin, which we did with Stephanie at MYV, which was awesome. And there's been some movies and stuff, which you were brilliant as Sayla in that. Those of you who have not seen Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin, it's excellent. Beautifully animated, very tragic tale. I mean, I think the second or third one is just you being sad a lot for like an hour. I felt so bad.
Lots of sadness, but seriously, the animation is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like Disney old school level stuff. But in the first step, I went on later. I played Garma, who was one of the Zabi, like the bad guy family characters. And in the first episode, he's like a little boy for like 3 or 4 lines. But that was you, and I booked him after because that was right when I was moving here. And I went back and I looked and I'm like, oh, Colleen plays I play adult her technically because you did it before I came in. But I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm honored by that. So that was cool. But
cool.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're continuing to do so much stuff all the time. It's incredible. I know you're doing a lot. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I can't. I have to mention this. I mean, the fact that you got to do Tales in the movie before we get off the Sonic topic. I mean,
I know.
that's a tremendous. As and again, zero offense. Ben is fantastic as Sonic, and Idris is amazing as Knuckles. Certainly would have been cool if it was all the game actors. But the fact that you got to be Tails that is a tremendous win for voice actors in Hollywood theatrical movies as main characters, because that is like, I can count on one hand how often that happens.
I know.
You know.
I still can't believe it. Like, I feel like it was some kind of weird dream, seriously. And before, like, they were kind of going back and forth, and I didn't know. And I remember being in Arlene's office and talking to Myrna and Larry and just being like, if I get to do this is a huge win for me, but it is a ginormous win for the voiceover community in general. Like, I remember saying that before I even knew whether or not I was going to get to do it. And it was just, I still can't believe it. Like, I just feel so very lucky.
Was that as simple as they just said, hey, we want you to do it? Was there no other kind of like process? Because I'll be honest, and again, also no offense, because I love all of them. My first thought was like, all right, which one of like the Stranger Things kids is going to play Tails or something?
I know. I joked on an interview thing that it was going to be Tom Holland, and then it turned into this whole thing. And I was like, I was kidding. I don't know. But I didn't think in a million years that they would let me do it. So no, it wasn't just as simple as that. It was, and we never know what the casting process is like. I have no idea. I don't know if they, had auditions. I don't know. But I know there was lots of discussion.
Yeah, wow.
So, and it just was a long time before they had. And even when I got to record, I wasn't sure if it was, because I know of people that were like, I forget who it was, but for some movie, they did their part, and then it turned into, oh, we're just using that as a scratch.
Yeah. Well, and actually, funnily enough, I always think of, because this shocked me, I've never seen Planes, but when I saw that, speaking of Roger's like one of the main characters, and I think, wasn't that a case where like I think he was doing scratch for somebody? Yeah. Like, no, we're just gonna keep you. It's fine. It's like, oh.
Yeah, he absolutely was, and then he got to keep it, and and he and Carlos Alazraqui, both of them got to keep their parts in that movie. So yeah, you just think, oh well, I'm a placeholder right now. I don't know what's gonna happen. And it was still COVID, so I had, I did sessions in my closet. Ben's in Vancouver. Jeff Fowler directors in Hawaii. People are like all over the place. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. But, when you were, I remember keeping an eye on some of the press and like, going off and doing interviews and talk shows or whatever, like any kind of memories of getting to do some of that stuff. Because I mean, that's a pretty, sometimes we'll do that for certain like cartoons or anime or whatever, but even that's pretty rare. I mean, for a movie, like that's such a special thing to get to do that.
It was crazy. And one of the first ones I got to do was for, a gaming website, and now I'm gonna forget. It was before the Game Awards. God, what was it? Was it the Game Awards? IGN. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think that's what it was. I think. Don't quote me. I could be wrong. But it was gonna be me, Ben Schwartz, Jeff Fowler, and James Marsden. And I'm like, what is happening? I don't know. What? But the funniest thing was, so I'm still, my booth wasn't finished yet. And I could have just set up my computer, my laptop, whatever, in my living room with something lovely behind me. But no, what do? I go in my closet and I have my big headphones on. And I'm like, why did I do this? Because everybody else is just, normal. So I was like, you know what? I'd already turned it on and I'm all set and I'm set up. So here I am in my closet with my ginormous headphones on my head. And I think James Marsden got into the meeting or whatever, the interview thing, before I did. And he was waiting. He had a question or something. And then I popped up because they let me in. And he thought I was the sound engineer.
It's like, no, I'm your co-star, sir.
Like, and he played it off like he knew that I was Tails, but it was really funny.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. I know we're close to the end here. I had a couple last a few things. One, and actually kind of a extra thing to this. I know that, speaking of your two kiddos, I know that Connor and Maggie both have done some voiceover as well.
They have.
I was going to ask about what is a day in the life of Colleen O'Shaughnessy these days, And I don't know if they're like necessarily continuing, if they want to make careers out of that, or necessarily. I know that's different for every kid as they, jump in and do parts here and there. But like, what is your day to day like for yourself? I don't know if they're still living with you or otherwise or any of that kind of stuff, but like, and managing them, and if they're doing more, like what is a week for you like these days?
Well, these days it's very different because they've left me.
Oh.
They're big and grown, and my son was always like, I want to be big and big. He's big and big. He did it. But he's at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, which is awesome. He's writing music, he's writing scripts, he's working on animated projects. He doesn't want to do voiceovers, but he does want to be a writer and do animation, and he's a ridiculously talented artist. My daughter's she's starting her sophomore year. She's not entirely sure what she wants to do. So my day today is I work out every morning mostly. I sprinkle in auditions and sessions here and there. I have these 2 gigantic dogs who are now my children. And they require lots of walking. So I walk them, and I just, I it's kind of boring. I don't, and then on a Thursday I go off to conventions. But yeah, I hang out with friends when I can, and I try to get outside. But my mornings are like, that's just for me. And I set that up a long time ago. Like even when my kids were little, like I needed something that was just for me, and that turned into these workouts that I do with these wonderful ladies and the gal that leads it. Like it's just like my Zen place.
Yeah.
I just yeah.
No, amen. I'm trying to do this. I don't have a group, but I'm trying to do the same as much as I can almost every morning too, because be healthy, take care of your bodies, everybody, please.
Well, yeah, and people ask me sometimes too, like, what do you do for your vocal health? Like that helps, doing cardio and because being able to breathe and have breath control and support your voice and protect it, especially when you're doing video games and things that are or crazy boy voices like Konohamaru, that actually helps me because it keeps I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And who knows anything at this point. Lastly. You talked earlier about, often when people ask you, oh, how do you get into this? And, taking acting classes, certainly. One of the reasons that I started doing a lot of these interviews with the various veterans of the voiceover world that I am lucky enough to get to know and talk to, like yourself, is I've met, as you know, there are so many people in this business now, let alone that want to get into it, but that are already in it. And I meet a lot of folks that are like, hey, say like I'm doing dubbing here and there, or I've done some, indie stuff, or like, non-union video games and things like that. And I meet a lot of people, and I'm even in that same boat where it's like, I want to, move into the next level of my career. I want to do AAA games. I want to do, ensemble prelay stuff, more union things, more commercials, whatever. And, so what often I've been asking my guests about is if you're giving advice to somebody who is already working, who's already in the business and, doing whatever that they can, but they want to ascend to like the next level of their ability. I don't know if you've had that come up before. What kind of advice do you offer to folks that are kind of in that realm?
That's a great question. I have not been approached with that. To them, I would say, like, if they already have an agent, I would say have a sit down with your agent and say, look, this is what I really want to do. So you need to start sending me out for these types of projects. If they don't have an agent, get one. And get into the union, because if you want to do AAA games and those kinds of things, you need to be, I think. Yeah. And, there's Jennifer Hale has that great is it called Voice Hub?
Or I know what you're talking about.
And there's they have professional voice actors and other instructor type people, and a lot of them are doing just that, like assisting other already working voice actors. Like there was an audition a few weeks ago. I actually considered doing that because I was like, maybe I need some coaching. But I there's certainly can't hurt to keep honing your skills. Take a professional voiceover workshop or a class that, for somebody that's at your level, that you've already been working, so you don't need the basics. You don't need, microphone 101. You might just want to start stretching yourself and like, how do I start creating, interesting characters that are unique to me? Like, it was so funny. I was on a panel with Roger just last weekend, and we were talking about, he's like, I steal from everyone. And it's so true. Like, listen to your, the people that you do idolize, or the games that you play, or the shows that you watch, listen to what they do. And, I'm not saying to copy that, but you take it and you then make it your own. You're like, oh, I'm going to do a smidgen of Roger with a little bit of Mike Pollock mixed in and a dash of Travis, and voila, I've got this brand new character that I stole from all these people.
No, I've stolen stuff from women. I've heard incredible performances from women that I'm just like, what elements, obviously I can't sound like that necessarily, but it's like, what elements of that can I borrow from or steal or siphon or whatever to invent and put my own spin on? Absolutely. Because I think also like I was using the word earlier, like reinventing yourself because trends change and like actually kind of in tandem with that, I imagine when your kids were very small, you were probably watching a lot of cartoons because they were watching that at some point.
Yeah.
If I had to guess. I mean, did you, were you looking at like, what do cartoons now sound like, in 2000, whatever, in 2010 and 2020, et cetera? Like, is that something that you do kind of actively keep up with in terms of like seeing how stuff changes and how you kind of evolve with it as well?
A little bit. Like I'll kind of see what's most popular right now. Like, and there was like a Gravity Falls period, and now there's like, I couldn't even tell you what. I probably should do it now. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go right now and go look and see what's trending. But what I really did was I paid attention to their friends, like not in a creepy way, but like all the different their different friend groups, and I would practice whilst reading books to them at night. We read books every night, and I would do characters galore, every character in every book. It was a one-woman show every night before bedtime.
It's the best training, absolutely.
Yeah, seriously. And it's so funny because I know people, like other voice actor people that did do that for their kids, and their kids were just like, read it normal.
No, do an audiobook.
Yeah, but my kids took it to the extreme where my son was like, be Zeter for dinner. Like through the whole dinner I had to be this one character. I'm like, I'm so tired. Just eat your nuggets. I gotta
Lord Almighty. Yeah, no, my
but they,
equivalent of that,
and they didn't, I was just mom.
Yeah.
And mom had a cool job, but I still, like, you asked about my day-to-day. When they were kids, like, I was in the PTA. I was a Girl Scout troop leader. I was drop off and pick up and send the snacks. And, I did all that mom stuff, and which is what's, voiceover is so wonderful because you really can kind of dictate your schedule that way.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Don't have to be at, on set at 3 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah, or if you're doing theater, you miss bedtime every night. And,
oh my God.
To be honest, I could have skipped a couple because it's exhausting. But I didn't, and I'm so happy that I didn't have to, because, I don't have any regrets. I didn't miss anything, which is awesome. And I have 2 amazing kids. Like, I know, they're mine, and I'm a little bit biased, but they're really, really great humans, which that was my goal, was to help foster some good humans into the world. So I feel like I did that.
And now you're fostering some lovely dogs that I've seen.
My doggies.
Well, hey, you have certainly done incredibly well for yourself, and you are a glowing pillar of positivity. Anytime I've ever gotten to hang out with you at various things around whatever since I've been out here, you've been so kind to me every time I've seen you. I think the first time I met you at maybe one of like we're still in the middle of the current strike, but the older one from years ago at like one of the 700 meetings we had about that, I went up and I was like, "You're doing fantastic on Tales, and thank you." Oh, thank you, etc. So, but thank you again, seriously, for taking the time to do that. Generic. What are your social media things if you use any of that? Unless you have a healthy life and don't look at the internet most of the time.
No, I do it. I don't love it, but I do it. So yeah, I'm on the Instagram. I'm Colleen O'Shaughnessy. I'm on TikTok, but I don't do a ton. I think it's real Colleen O'Shaughnessy because someone had already stolen my name.
How dare they?
And then on what used to be Twitter, at VO Colleen. And you know what I did? I did the Threads thing, so it's the same as Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
But I'm never on that because I forget that it's there.
Cool. This is coming out in actually probably close to Halloween. I don't know if you've got any cons or anything happening for the rest of the year, but if people can see you, will they be seeing you before the year's up?
Yes, you can see me actually this Sunday, in Burbank, of all places. Sunday the 17th, in Burbank at the Game Realms. They're doing a whole Sonic thing from 1 to 4, and there's going to be a bunch of us there. Cindy's going to be there, and Kirk and Wally and Davey Mitchell, and I don't remember who else. But so that's this Sunday. Then I go to Anime North Texas at the last weekend of September. And then the weekend after that, October 7th through 8th, I go to Syracuse, New York to Retro Game Con. And then I'm off to Australia in November. I'm doing Brisbane and Adelaide. I'm so excited.
Wow. Have you done that flight before?
No, I've done New Zealand, but I've never been to Australia.
Oh, okay. But you've done like the 700-hour flight at least.
Yes.
So, all right.
Yes.
A good book is in the works. Cool. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, everybody. Please in the comments below send your love to Colleen. Go follow her on everything. And look forward to, I'm sure, oh, you know what, actually, I believe, I think that by the time this is out, yes, the Sonic Frontiers DLC will be out.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Which is
Tails
excellent.
will be playable.
Yeah, yes. So excited. I haven't played as Tim in so long, so that's awesome. Cool. And in case this might be the end of Voiceoctober 2023, unless I possibly get an extra guest, we'll see. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Keep talking pretty. Keep saying wonderful, beautiful things with your mouth. And I'll see you next year with hopefully some more wonderful people that will lower their standards to be on my YouTube channel for an hour at a time. So see y'all later. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.